Well, hello everybody. This is John Feldt, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Water Outlook for May 12th, 2013. Well, here's the precipitation patterns over the last week, the last 7 days. Generally, it was a lot less organized than we've seen over the last several weeks or even the last several months. It's been pretty scattered over the Midwest, and that's an area that's received a lot of rain over the last month. There has been some rain in that area. It's resulted in some runoff and some additional flooding in isolated spots. The more significant rain was located over parts of Kentucky into the mid-Atlantic states, and I'll show you just in a moment here the reason for that. But take a look at over the very broad part of the western U.S. Look at this area here. Everywhere, pretty much in this area here, very quiet weather with little precipitation at all. And if we look at the percent of normal, reds are areas of well below normal. Purple is above normal. We see in the middle part of the nation sort of a mix of above and below normal. The clear trends, I really see two. It's the upper tier of the U.S., that's the dry, that's the red. And then over parts of the mid-Atlantic states, Kentucky and areas to the east, wetter conditions over the last week. As far as soil moisture goes, we see an area here of very wet soils. The dark green and blue are very wet. These areas are vulnerable to enhanced runoff should additional rain occur. We have this transition zone. This is an area where soil moisture is fairly neutral. This started off earlier this season in drought, and that's sort of switched over to neutral conditions now. And then we get over further to the west, and you can see for the most part we have below normal soil moisture. Now, a number of months ago, this was a lot more red, and you might say, well, does that mean where things are changing significantly? Maybe, but I think it's more reflective of just we're heading out of the winter recharge season. Now the critical time will be with temperatures warming. Will it just come back as far as lighting up in red with drought impacts coming back, or will it get enough precipitation to keep it in check as we go through the next couple months? Now here's a summary of stream flow across the nation. Blue is above normal stream flow. Black is well above normal stream flow over the southeast U.S. We have pretty widespread pockets of dry or low stream flow over Texas, over California, and over the northeast U.S. And then the area of what we saw was spring snowmelt runoff type flooding in this area, high stream flow, and then really the predominant winter precipitation pattern was right here and then over the southeast U.S. So those are pretty much, from a precipitation standpoint, the three areas of enhanced precipitation and now high stream flow. We do have some spots still in flood. We have the upper Midwest spring snowmelt flooding, Red River of the North, moderate flooding, a couple spots major in some of the tributaries. Then we have some scattered flooding occurring still in the Mississippi and Illinois River. These are receding, and I really don't see any additional rain right now that's going to bring those back up. So the Midwest, the upper Midwest spring snowmelt flooding, snows in the rivers, and then we're seeing recessions for most of the Mississippi and Illinois at this current time, except further south over the lower Mississippi. Now, I didn't think I'd have to show any more snow graphics anymore this season, but I'm going to show one more, and I really think this should be it. Pretty significant snow over parts of Colorado, up to a foot, maybe more in spots, and pretty isolated to some of the higher elevations. But look at the melt rate. The orange is the areas of really significant melting. It's way up into Canada now, the snow's melting, so we're really ending the season, other than some very late exceptional snow over higher elevations. And you can see here from the snow depth, that is really the only place that snow is lingering is over the higher elevations. So I think we're pretty much done with it this year. There was a little bit last week over higher elevations, but you probably won't be hearing me talking about snow anymore until next season. So here's the upper flow pattern. This has been a very pesky type pattern. You remember I mentioned the precipitation over the Ohio Valley and the mid-Atlantic earlier, the enhanced precipitation. And that's due to this upper low, this jet stream. And this has really shaped our precipitation for the last month, where we've had snow and enhanced rainfall over parts of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, into the mid-Atlantic region due to both the closed upper low and this jet stream. Once we got out of this energy, it's been a lot quieter. So we're going to have some big changes this week. the jet stream is going to shift north, and I wanted to show you this is that area of low pressure, sort of the dip right here. It shifts off to the east. Look how far north this jet really pushes, and we haven't seen that so far this spring, and that's going to really result in a quiet week for most of the area with temperatures warming. Now the shaded area there represents higher wind speeds. That's upper atmospheric energy, and that's along the axis of that jet. That's where we'd expect any chance of more significant precipitation. If we look at late this week, it's actually quieter. Look at this. We have less jet wind speed. The jet remains to the north. It sort of breaks down. Very quiet pattern by late this week. I wanted to show you how unusually far north the jet's going to be. These are ensemble runs of specific models showing the upper jet stream pattern. And green is the climatology, where it would normally be at this time of year. Look how much further north it is versus where it would normally be. So not only is this a change for us because we've had this low pressure dominating with cooler temperatures, now it's going to be pushing to the north, even further north than would be normal for this time of year. Now week 2, I wanted to point out the purple dashed lines represent zero anomaly. So it's saying that on week 2, it could be trending a bit back towards normal. That doesn't mean it dips south like we've seen. That just means that it's going to be more over the central part of the nation. Now, you might have heard this past week that we've had a record low number of tornadoes. That's due to that cold air, that upper low that's been in place. That is really inhibits severe weather for the most part. Now, with this jet stream dipping a bit south next week, there could be a little bit better chance. But again, it looks pretty weak right now, and without a real strong jet stream, you're probably not going to have widespread severe weather either. So it does look like, definitely this week looks like well below normal precipitation and severe weather. Maybe a little bit more next week, but right now it's hard to say if it's going to be normal or not. So here are the big picture precipitation trends this week. I think there are a couple, and I want to point out the dry ones as much as the wet. Well, look at this here. This whole region of the country looks like either no rain or very light rain. So first of all, we're looking at a very dry trend over the parts of the south and southwest. Over the southeast U.S., it looks also very quiet. It looks very light precipitation. And then even over the upper Midwest, it looks like this pattern maybe comes in late this week. So there could be some modest precipitation late this week, but most of the week also looks fairly quiet. If we look at the climate models, I wanted to look at week 1 and week 2. Week 1 is on the top, week 2 is on the bottom. What we see are very dry conditions in week 1, that's the red. And then on week 2, what we see are wet conditions, and that's that area of green. It looks like a flip-flop. We'll have to see if that occurs. When I see these flip-flops from one week to the next, sometimes I'm skeptical on that, but it does look like we could have a flip-flop. So these are some of the big trends through the end of the month, and it does show that the dry pattern over the southwest and the southeast continues. Possibility as we get towards the latter part of the month, that wet pattern could reestablish over the central part of the U.S. But again, that's pretty far out, so we're going to have to see. I do think there's a high confidence in this trend right here, pretty much the southeast, all the way the whole southern U.S. being dry. I think there's a high confidence. As far as this kicking in, I think there's a little bit more question as whether that trend will occur. So the takeaway from this week's briefing, jet pushing north, a quiet week, warming temperatures. Next chance for any significant rain, perhaps later this week, some mid-nation showers, but that dry pattern will persist over the west and the southwest. Hey, I really appreciate you listening to the briefing this week. I hope you have a nice week. I will be updating this again next weekend.